Hey everyone, it's over. It's done and dusted. Nebraska football is no more. RIP. It's been a good 130 years, but we lost to Illinois on Saturday, and so today we have a lot to talk about. Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. We're not over. It's not done and dusted, folks. We got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, this weekend did not go like all of us or Nebraska football would have hoped it went, even though we were, hesitant going into the weekend talking about the ways it could have gone wrong and things like that. But obviously, we have a ton to talk about today, and we're going to talk about the Illinois game. We're going to talk about some of the future of Nebraska football and why we still have a lot of reasons to be positive about Nebraska football moving forward. And then we'll talk about the Fordham game this weekend, some of the things that we're hoping to see in that game, some of the improvements, and some of the things we're hoping to tune up heading into the rest of the season. So it's going to be a fun one. Caleb, how you doing?
I obviously could be better.
Fair.
Although, it wasn't something out of the range of possibilities as we were expecting last video. We told everybody, if you're betting
on Illinois.
Bet on Illinois, bet on the under. It was going to be a close game, and, we were right. As always, never wrong.
We'll take our total
zero deaths.
We'll take our victory loser's lap. That even though we predicted Nebraska to win, we told you though. Don't worry. It's definitely a wild one, and so we're gonna be breaking that down, talking about that. Like we said, it's kind of the roadmap for this video, talking about all those things about Nebraska. So without further ado, I think we can kind of start off with the Illinois game and some of our thoughts on the game as a whole. Obviously, to open it up, there's a lot of what ifs. That's kind of been the theme of Nebraska football lately, is the what ifs about Nebraska. And, like we said, we're going to be talking about why Nebraska still has every reason to be optimistic and not why we're not dead. But for this game specifically, the what ifs, what if there wasn't a roughing the passer call on the interception? What if Cam Taylor doesn't field the punt at the 1 yard line? What if Adrian doesn't fumble the ball and return for a touchdown? What if we don't miss 2 extra points? It's always these mistakes. As long as we don't do that next time, we're going to win the game. And that's what it feels like every single time. But yet we continually have these mistakes, especially on the road. So, Caleb, what are your thoughts on this game? Let's start with the offensive side of the ball and talk about some of those things first.
Yeah, so obviously those are the obvious, momentum changing moments that happen in every game, regardless of who plays. There's always going to be big mistakes or plays that change the outcome. So I think some of the controllables for Nebraska, maybe outside the turnovers and all that other stuff, would be our offensive line, which played bad. Which again,
that's an understatement. How nice of you.
Again, we warned you about that. Everybody was like, we lose 2 key offensive linemen. Everybody's like, our offensive line is going to be better. And that seems so unbased in anything.
Especially when one of them was a left tackle, right?
Exactly. And was by far our best offensive lineman.
And a captain right guard. Matt Farniok
even though Farniok,
iffy. But
still.
He's playing for the Cowboys right now. So at least the NFL thought he had at least some sort of talent. But I agree with you. The O-line was just absolutely disgusting.
But Ethan Piper, he shined brightest. Like a diamond. He was so obviously terrible this whole game. It was just hard to miss. Scott Frost said there was lack of effort. There was no lack of effort. I have some arguments by just watching him play. It was so bad. Guys just got through.
He allowed
he was just
3 sacks
let everybody in. It was an all-you-can-eat buffet behind the line of scrimmage. As far as Ethan Piper was concerned, everybody gets a plate. Everybody tastes.
We'll single him out.
You get a tackle for loss. You get a tackle for loss. You get a sack. It was horrible. And
it was real bad. It was one of the worst. Overall, as an offensive line, it was one of the worst offensive line performances I think we've seen under Frost. It was really, really bad. Not only in the passing game, but in the running game as well. No running back could really get anything going on the ground. The only really explosive plays we saw was the 10-yard run from Gabe Ervin, on our own 1 yard line. We saw a few decent moments, on the maybe in the 5 gap, on the outside of the tackles. But besides
It was the correlation, like the Marquis Step touchdown, that Gabe Irving nice run. Yep. All the good runs had one thing in common: we actually hit our assignments and blocked. It wasn't that hard. It wasn't rocket science. They weren't doing anything crazy. It's just when we did what we were supposed to do, we got good gains. It was crazy. It was so bad. And to allow as many sacks as we did against Illinois, again, who weren't anything impressive. Like Jake Hansen was pretty good, but like
for sure.
Their defensive line wasn't like there's no big guy on the stat sheet to like, oh, you need to be concerned about him. He's going to
especially when you look at last year when they were like literally one of the worst defenses in the country last year. So it's like that's what gets frustrating. Again, they were returning a lot of seniors, and that was kind of one of our big worries was they're going to have a very veteran team here, and it's at home. We know what Adrian has normally done on the road, and we still have a lot of questions about our offensive line. And basically every worst case scenario ended up coming true for us to lose this game. Because again, if our O-line plays an even like decent game, it feels like we win this game because I mean, maybe the turnover doesn't happen. The fumble recovery for a touchdown doesn't happen. We have a few more big time plays. We saw Adrian even break off for that big time run. There was a lot of those good things that happened in small spurts, but we couldn't establish the run at all. And like, when it comes to the running game,
it was the run protection that was worse.
Yeah, it was really bad. I mean, like, again, Gabe Irvin was the guy that we highlighted as a player that we thought was going to start, which, again, victory lap. He did start. It was the first true freshman ever to start the opening season for Nebraska, which is pretty cool. But literally you go back and watch every single snap of Gabe Irvin on the game, and like whenever he had any sort of space, he made a decent play, but it was only like 3 different times because like his other like 8, whatever how many carries he ended up having, like dude, 11, he got hit behind the line of scrimmage like over half of them. Like, bro, there was and every single running back had the same experience. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah, even Step, like, we didn't get to see
Step
that
had some
much.
good moments too.
Yeah, and we didn't even get to see that much because, man, they were just getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. It was really painful. Obviously, Scott Frost said that there was, he thought they were going to be running a 3-4, but they ended up running a 4-3. He talked about that this week. So obviously that is part of it. You're scheming for it. But I mean, that's just good on Illinois. You can figure it out. It's not like we never play a 4-3 team. No. I think a lot of it was just our offensive line wasn't that great. I mean, the good news is, even though our offensive line played absolutely terrible, it is the first game of the season. So there is plenty of chances for a lot of these, even Ethan Piper, who we just bagged on, there is chances for him to do better at the end of the season. So that's the good news. But the bad news is he did play awful. So it's the first game, but it was rough. It was rough to say the least. I
mean, again, if it wasn't Adrian Martinez running the ball, and the only reason why his stats look good on the ground is because he ripped off a 75-yard touchdown. Like, if he didn't have a 75-yard touchdown, if that one play doesn't happen,
his yards is terrible.
We have like 85 yards rushing if that happens. So like, we would have 85 yards rushing on 38 carries if Adrian didn't rip off a 75-yard touchdown.
And honestly,
that's so bad.
Also, I think we didn't run the ball because we didn't run the ball enough. I think it was part of it too. Like, I don't think it was super balanced.
To be fair, I mean, we were losing. There was
we
were
losing, so he can't. So
we still ran the ball, and ended up running the ball
38
38 times. It's not like we didn't run the ball.
I mean, I think a lot of them were.
We ran at 38.
I mean, I think that some of those runs though were just like broken.
They were
down
scrambles for sure. I mean, Adrian ended up with 17 carries for sure. I mean, and he made some good plays on the ground.
17. So
he made some good plays on the ground. In those scrambling situations. Again,
for sure. That's his best. That's his best quality. Again,
right? Exactly. And exactly. This is why last year when we did our Adrian Martinez breakdown video a few months ago, in a non-clean pocket, Adrian was a top 20 passer, a top 20 graded player on Pro Football Focus because he could run the ball. But when he had a clean pocket, he was ranked like 120th. And that was exactly what we saw in this game too.
When he had time to throw, he didn't
hit him.
Man,
ironically, his best throw of the game was when a dude was in his face and he had to lean backwards and heave the ball downfield to Oliver Martin. And it was like a 50-yard pass play downfield. Like
which tied the amount of 40+ yard pass plays we had last season with one.
Let's go.
Already in the first game. Yes. So exciting. But that was his best play. And like, he had the pressure coming at him. The pocket wasn't clean. He threw a great pass.
Right, and that's exciting. I mean, that's something we have not seen from Adrian at all in his career, or since freshman year. So, I mean, that was exciting to see. And again, we saw some decent moments from Adrian. It always is the case. There's some good moments. You're like, oh, okay, there you go. That's a great run there. That's a great decision there. But then
man, that second, third quarter in the passing game for
the
him.
turnovers and the missed throws. Obviously, the negatives for Adrian were, highlighted by the fumble recovery for the touchdown at the end of the second. That absolutely changed the momentum of the game. He missed the throw to Wyatt Lure in the corner of the end zone.
A nice little rub route that didn't get called there.
Yeah, and yes.
I see
and we did
Scott.
it later, and it did get called, which was ironic. But
I'm proud.
And then he unfortunately he missed the throw there, and then he missed the little out route, like the next play later on third down that would have been right there for him. And you're overthrowing Austin Allen, who's 6'9", and you should. If there's one guy you're not gonna miss, it's Austin Allen, and he had a pretty clean pocket to hit that out route too. And he overthrew him. And so there's just those things where you're just like, how do you run a consistent offense when Adrian can't hit a throw when he has a clean pocket? Dude, that's just gets really frustrating.
When Artur Stakowski looks like the way better passing quarterback.
And the irony.
And he was Noah Vedril's backup. And he
lost the job to Noah Vedral at Rutgers and then transferred to Illinois because he lost the job to our backup who lost the job to Adrian. Oh, they couldn't script it better than this.
And the man was throwing dimes.
Yeah.
You got questions. He
went 12 for 15 on the day. I mean, that's something else. But no, yeah, exactly. Those are the big time things. Again, the running game was awful, and that all stems back down to the offensive line play. That's the highlight of the offensive side of the ball. Receiving, though, I mean, again, Oliver Martin did look good. And that was a surprise. I think both of us thought Xavier Betts was going to play. Frost ended up addressing it afterwards, saying that Xavier didn't have a consistent week of practice, which is why he didn't see the field, which, I guess I understand. But I mean, last year, everything on the field pointed to Xavier being the real deal talent-wise. So it's really unfortunate that we really didn't even get to see him.
And Omar looked good, too, but honestly, he didn't get the field enough, or didn't get the ball enough. He wasn't on enough snaps. But man, that 15-yard run catch that he had, where he absolutely manhandled his corner and just carried him along the ride, that was really nice.
Really great. I mean, he made some great plays, and he looks the real deal out there. I mean, he is massive on the field compared to a lot of those corners too. And so that was a positive. And again, I think Samori Torrey overall lived up to the hype and played very, very well and made some nice plays. I thought we used him well. And so those are all the positive upside things here. But if our offensive line is going to be a bottom 15 O-line in the country, then it doesn't matter how good the rest of this team looks. I mean, basically, when you look at this offense, it looked like last year, except Adrian didn't have an elite offensive talent to dump the ball off to and just heave the ball up to like a Wandale when he was under pressure.
Yeah, it looks like last year's offense with a worse offensive line and a little less of playmaking. Although Torrey did remind me a little bit of Jordan Westerkamp, pretty sure-handed.
I agree.
Elusive for his size, and really did run some really good routes. Again, there's going to be chances, but we're not going to see much worse defensive fronts. And to be having that gets scary. To be having that the way it was isn't great. So
good news is the worst defensive fronts we'll see are the next 2 weeks. So hopefully that lets us get into groove a little bit with obviously with Fordham, and then Buffalo's defense was awful last year. So again,
you learn the most the first few weeks of the football season. So hopefully we can make adjustments.
And then you get the reality check with Oklahoma, and then you're like, all right, we got something to work on.
You ignore that one, You watch that one just to have them show the 1970s highlights of the game of the century,
That's true. You're
just man, this was fun. Glad we don't do this every year.
Yeah, so overall, those are kind of the big things. I mean, Austin Allen only got targeted 4 times in the game, and I thought that was a little bit of a missed opportunity to not target him a little bit more. He didn't have a catch till the second half, so that was also a little bit surprising. And then Travis Vokalek ended up not making the trip because of an injury, so we didn't even get to see him, on the field, which is unfortunate. So hopefully in the future we can get him back with injury, and then the offense can be, moving in the right direction. The O-line is what you got to watch for there. So defensively, I mean, we saw some great things. We saw some bad things, and just a really mixed bag there where I think overall there was a lot of positives, but thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, no, the defense was really exciting, especially at the beginning of the game. we were really, really aggressive to start the game. And that was really awesome to see. Our defensive line was moving the offensive line
in
again,
that first half. Oh,
which again is a very exciting thing because Illinois' offensive line last year was pretty good, and this year was supposed to be pretty good too. And so for us to get pressure, we were getting pressure sending 3, sending 4.
Yeah,
that was
hyped.
things we were not seeing last year that we were hoping to see this year. And so that is a very good sign. DeAndre Thomas played great. Damian Daniels played great. Ben Stilley played really good at moments. The whole defensive line was awesome. And then we had that blitz package with Feldarius Payne, which we said he was a key player to watch at the beginning of the season, if you would remember. And he got 2 sacks, not 1, but 2 sacks.
Yeah,
it was awesome to see. And man, our linebackers looked improved, which was really exciting. We needed to see more out of this from the Scott Frost tenure. We need to see improvement at positions. And while we haven't seen it on the offense, we have been seeing it on the defensive side of the ball, which is exciting to see. Garrett Nelson and Caleb Tanner looked improved. We said we needed some linebackers to step up this season, and it looks like Garrett Nelson and Caleb Tanner are the 2 guys that are gunning for that this year, which was really exciting.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the big thing for us. And that was, to a few players, like Caleb Tanner was one guy who we highlighted as like a honorable mention in our breakout show. Because we're like, well, if he loses that weight and has that extra step, he could look really good. And he looked shredded out there. I mean, he looked like a guy who had like an NFL stature, like an edge rusher should look. So that was exciting to see. And then he had some great moments.
He pancaked one of their offensive tackles. I mean, just put him into the dirt. It was so exciting to see. Yeah. And obviously, he got great pressure on the play.
The little stunt route. Yeah. Or the stunt rush. Yep.
And it stunk, obviously, that he. Yeah,
he had the pressure. He made the hit, and then he got the call for unnecessary roughness.
The taunting you can control, and you can't do. The hit. You kind of just you take that as what it is. I think.
I think overall
it was so close on the timing, and it looked worse in slow motion than full speed. I think. Yeah, was part of it too.
I mean, again, he did kind of drive him into the ground, which I think overall is a crap rule for NCAA, but like based off the rule book, it makes sense that was the call.
Also, it makes sense. Like we did injure their starting QB, so it makes sense that the refs are gonna protect the backup. Like we don't want to throw Illinois' whole season here. Right. It makes sense. It stinks, but it makes sense.
That's one. We probably should have led with that, honestly. So, again, at the end of the day, our defense was playing against Illinois offense, who we knew could run the ball effectively. We knew they had a pretty good offensive line when it came to running the ball. The question mark was, could they throw the ball? How would our secondary look against a solid passer, like this? But then, you injure Brandon Peters in the first quarter, and then Arthur Sikowski.
You're up 9-2. You're up 9-2, and I'm like, oh, it's over. It's
GG's.
A blowout. GG's.
Yeah, GG's. It's over. And but Arthur Sikowski comes in, like we said, Rutgers backup quarterback. We're like, oh, this is a joke. There's no way. There's no way this guy beats us.
There's no way.
He comes in, goes 12 for 15. Not only that, but he has a dime from the 50-yard line to get him down to the 1-yard line. On that insane pass towards the left side.
I mean, we're talking the bread basket.
Literally a dime throw. Like this would go down as a top 5 throw in Adrian's career. Yeah. And it was a fantastic throw. And there's things like that. You're like, what possessed Arthur Sikowski in this game? And he looked fantastic. Again, in the second half, they had the lead because our offense gave him the chance there. And so they didn't have to throw the ball very much, which is an ideal situation for a guy like him to be in. So, they did put him in a good position to succeed, which,
my question is, what the heck is our problem? Like Scott Frost losing to backup QBs. Like we lost to Purdue's like 3rd string QB. And Indiana's backup.
Michael Penix wasn't playing that game.
Yeah. And then now we've lost to Illinois with their backup QB. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then we can't beat Northern Illinois with a backup QB. So that's just ridiculous. So we got some issues.
Yeah, that is a question mark for sure. I mean, again, so that's why there's kind of like the positives and negatives of the defense, where like we saw a lot of really good things, but like at the same time it was against a backup quarterback against Illinois. And so it's like hard to kind of figure out how this could translate moving forward against great teams. Like, can this defense really stack up against a Heisman Trophy candidate playing against Oklahoma in a few weeks here? It's like, that's hard to imagine that we're going to be getting pressure in a game like that, or like be able to lock down, perimeter talent in a game against Oklahoma. So that's where I'm like wishy-washy against
secondary
the
left some
takeaways.
to be desired for sure.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like if you had to project, like, okay, is this a top what in the country defense heading into the rest of the year? I've seen some Husker fans saying top 25, and that seems like a pretty big stretch to me now.
You can't let Artur Stikowski drive an 8-minute, like 17 play
to start
drive
the second half.
To start the second half.
It was a 14 play, 75-yard drive at the start of the second half.
You can't be doing that if you're a top 25 defense, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I agree. I would lean like, okay, maybe we're top 60. I'm down to commit to top 60. Maybe top 50. I could get to top 50. When you get to like that top 40 range, I'm like, I don't know if I can guarantee us being there yet.
I think we can't. Again, we have the talent to be, I think, at this point, but we need to put it together for sure.
No, yeah, that's fair. I mean, we saw the positive things from like Reimer and Garrett Nelson, and Deontay Williams had some great plays in the backfield, near the line of scrimmage when we were playing some single high safety, which again, last year Deontay had some nice tackles for loss around the line of scrimmage. JoJo was a little bit quiet, which I think was a little bit of a surprise.
Only had one tackle, which was really surprising.
He had some nice pass coverage, like situations where he played some great pass coverage, but we didn't see him really making those plays around the field like you would normally expect him to make in a game like this. So overall, I would say it was a mixed bag of things for the defensive side. Overall, optimistic heading into the rest of the year for the defense. But again, when you're returning 9 of 11 starters, I think you'd hope to see an absolutely dominant performance against a team like Illinois, and that definitely was not the case.
And then, like that hit, obviously, that roughing the passer and then taunting, like
that could change the game.
It took the air out of the sails for the defense. They weren't nearly as aggressive.
Agreed.
Which I don't think was the right response from them. It sucks,
I can see that.
But the sacks kind of stopped. The pressure wasn't nearly as good. The wind was totally out the sails, and I think if you're a veteran defense, like we did get stops definitely when we needed them in the second half. But I don't know, just when the wind gets taken out your sails like that, I would hope they would respond just a little bit quicker.
Right. I mean, to be fair, again, the field positioning because of our special teams and offense was nowhere near in our defense's favor. Like this put them in some tough spots. So, that could be a reason why as well.
That's part of it too.
That's what we saw last year too, with the defense.
We get put in horrible spots.
Right. And they were pretty good when it came to like red zone efficiency and all things considered with how bad our offense put them in some spots. And then our special teams, we couldn't have a good punt for our lives. So that didn't help either.
Yeah, 13-yard punts aren't going to cut it.
Right. And then the turnovers as well. So, I mean, obviously, that highlight with the special teams with Cam Taylor receiving the punt at the 1-yard line, like literal brain dead plays from a captain. Like,
that's pain. He had a similar
that.
Bad situation with the punt last year where he muffed it against Iowa.
He muffed it against Iowa in the most crucial part of the game when we could make the comeback, and then he muffed the punt. So, we've seen some big time mistakes from Cam, who again, we love. Cam Taylor Britt. We love Cam Taylor Britt. But those are some massive mistakes that you just can't be making as a captain for a football team. And that's like a play that like junior hires don't field the punt at the 1-yard line, let alone a potential NFL player, like, come on, man. Like, that's just tough.
You know that like, the hash line that you're on, you don't move behind. You know?
Exactly. Like that's just so that's pretty inside your own 10-yard line. Like, come on, so that's just tough. And overall, special teams was absolutely horrible again. So great, good to see. So all right, overall tough stuff for Nebraska. So now I think it's time to talk about some of the negativity we've seen about Nebraska, about Scott Frost, the hot seat, why Nebraska football is dead. Why Nebraska football is dead. I mean, this is like some narrative that we've been seeing like from a lot of mainstream media. Like they have no chance to be relevant ever again.
Not only nationally, but locally, like,
locally too.
Like, tons of local pundits being like, it's, it's over.
Their time is past.
Our time has passed. We're fading into oblivion. Sun sighted, the sun has set on Nebraska. It's all over. It's so dead and gone.
Stupid.
That is so dumb.
Okay.
You are so dumb if you wrote that. You are an idiot. Now, okay, so let's talk about this. Like,
we're never gonna get back to the 90s.
Well, no, duh. Husker football in the A, we weren't alive, but B, it's not hard to look. That 5-year stretch,
we were alive. Let's not.
That's true. That's true.
We just don't remember.
We were, Yeah,
96, 97.
That's
We're
right.
national champions,
we were technically alive. We were technically alive when it happened.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Or then some of it happened, not all of it. But come on. Like, of course Nebraska is never going to have essentially the greatest historical stretch of football ever. It is literally
Besides,
us
like
and Alabama. Like that's
come
it.
Come on.
You know? And it's like, no duh. Like, Tom Osborne and Nick Saban are once in a millennia coach. That, of course, that's not going to happen again.
Falls in place for you. I mean, in the 90s, obviously, Nebraska had a lot of things going our way. We had the programs that we were really ahead on when it came to like tutoring programs and adoptive player programs and weight training and all these things that like were huge
nutrition,
advantages.
all this stuff.
Massive advantage. We were innovators at that time. So like, yeah, it all came together for us, obviously. But at the same time, we don't need to be 90s Nebraska. That's not the point. That is not the standard for relevance. That is literally being Alabama.
That's not the standard. I don't think any fandom is like, you know what? Until we're this 2010s Alabama, I don't want it. If we're not Nick Saban Alabama right now, I'm not a fan. Nobody is saying that. Nobody on like planet Earth is saying that. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, so exactly, like this was the thing we wanted to kind of hammer home off the rip here with this conversation was that, and first of all, this is gonna be a long episode of the video, so strap in.
Nobody has that standard. No one.
I mean, only Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama.
Josh and I have never. We
standard.
don't remember us winning a conference championship, and we're fans. We have never seen a conference championship.
And so this was one thing that we wanted to highlight was like ESPN had a segment where they were talking about like, oh, Nebraska fans think that they need to be in the 90s and they're going to beat Ohio State every year. Like, that's just so not the case. Like, no Nebraska fans like, yeah, we're going to beat Ohio State this year. No Nebraska fans.
Yeah, that's what he said on national television. He said that last year we all thought that we were going to beat Ohio
State.
Ohio State. Watch our video. Watch our video. No, we did not. Nobody thought that. So we have hope, but you never like, you know what? This week, we're beating Ohio State.
Right. No, there's our rant about the national media right now in this narrative. But again,
local media. Okay, we're not dead.
Can Nebraska still be a yearly relevant program? And even at that point, some of the national media was saying no because, and then they always use the same argument. Look at the talent pool. Like they look at the population of Nebraska versus.
What a cop-out answer.
That's such a cop-out answer.
That's them not doing work, not doing research. That's just picking the nerve that's like, oh, it's easiest. Oh, they don't have a lot of people that live around them. Well, no duh again. Of course. But look again.
So look at obviously, and it's like the times have changed. Wow. Look at the talent pool is the argument, but like,
thanks. Yes, 30 years ago isn't now. Thank you for your enlightening take.
Caleb is fired up.
Wow, you're so smart. That's why you're on ESPN. Goodness gracious. Jeez.
Yeah, no. So I mean, like again, let's look at this thing objectively a little bit here. Obviously times have changed. Yes, Nebraska doesn't have this like shine like USC or even Oregon or, obviously we're not Alabama, we're not Ohio State right now.
Yes.
But things can change. I mean, right now, Iowa State is a top 5 team in the country.
What on earth?
What in the world? The
K-State almost went to a national championship like 8 years ago with Colin Klein. Okay, that's K-State. What do you mean that you can't be nationally relevant? Like, what?
Yeah, so again, look at this. I mean, like teams like Iowa State, Iowa, Wisconsin, Oregon, Oklahoma State, Boise State, Utah,
Michigan State.
Even like a team like
Nobody
Michigan
wants
State.
to go to Michigan State. That's the redheaded stepsister of the Big Ten. Goodness gracious. They don't like everybody's like, oh, Michigan's better. And look at them. They started kicking the crap out of Big Brother for like the last decade. Right.
I mean, again, D'Antonio.
They won conference titles with Urban Meyer as the coach, and nobody can beat him. Like, they went to the college football playoff.
Yeah. That was while Michigan was still going to be good and while Ohio State was still there, like with Urban Meyer as coach. So
it's just, it's
it's not like it's impossible for Nebraska to find a top 10 season and like national top 25 relevance again. That's insane. So
Mike Riley was ranked inside the top 10. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And he was a trash coach. So like
everybody,
and
can
again,
calm
like this
down.
is the same thing. Like when obviously, you know, teams like Iowa State, Iowa, Boise State, Utah, who have been like perennially very good programs the past, you know, 20 years.
Boise State,
they have no one in there. There's no population near them. Like that's the same thing with Nebraska. So like, even if we take the lowest bar for decent teams like those teams when it comes to population and the talent pool locally, like that's the lowest bar. And then if you look at recruiting, you know, that is just a whole nother level of like, okay, there's no reason here. And so the first thing is, of course, you can
the
debate.
argument's talent pool, yet we pull the 4th best recruiting class consistently since we've been in the Big Ten.
And like, then obviously people can then debate, does Rivals or 24/7, does these recruiting rankings really matter? Does it really matter? And that's a fair argument. I think that's a fun video. And we've talked about these things in past videos as well.
For sure.
But here's some average rankings. So we took the average of the last 4 years, but you could run this thing back 10 years. You could run this back a decade. Nebraska's going to have the advantage. So let's just talk about teams that are locally relevant to Nebraska. Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. So just Big Ten West teams. And then we threw Iowa State in there as well because they're currently a top, 10 team in the country. Some have them top 5, and we blow them out of the water recruiting wise. So last 4 years, Nebraska's Rivals ranks were 18, 17, 15, and 21. 24/7 was 20, 20, 17, 23. So an average of 17.75 from Rivals, an average of 20 from 24/7. Overall, the average of both of those was 18.9 national ranking, which that national ranking combined versus Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Iowa State. So Wisconsin average combined ranking was 28.4 over the last 4 years. Iowa's was 34.9 over the last 4 years. Minnesota's was 40.3, and Iowa State's was 50.8. So the argument that we just can't get
it's silly.
Makes no sense.
We spend so much money on recruiting every year, and it works out. We get, again, nationally rated players, and again, 4 stars, like top end 4 stars. We get those guys.
Yeah, and we're putting in a $150 million facility next year. It should only get better from here on out.
Sure, it definitely is way easier in Florida or Alabama or Texas or California.
Or UCF.
That's not that we're not even arguing that. Of course it's easier. But Nebraska as a program has spent the money to still compete nationally in the recruiting sector.
Right.
Now, again, yes, we're not top 5 recruiting classes. And obviously, there's a world of difference there when you're talking national championships. And
Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama.
And that's no duh. But also, like, while they spend a good amount of money, they've won, so players just naturally want to go there.
Right. They're on national TV every week.
And that's a repetitive cycle. Like, that's how it works. That's how it worked at Nebraska. Like, obviously, when you are winning, it's attractive. And so, like, but we've done more than enough, even in a 20-year rut, essentially, our whole life rut that we've been alive, we've still done a good enough job to compete. Getting the players is not the problem. We have plenty of guys that have played in the NFL, and like that's the real argument is.
But I mean, like,
how's our development of those players been? And that's the real thing. Or are we recruiting the right guys with the right reasons? Because again, and like, even in recruiting, you can never know how hard a guy's gonna work. And that's just the truth.
Exactly.
You'll never know.
And you can talk to their high school coaches. You can have those conversations.
Jamarcus Russell could be drafted number 1 overall
and then
to the
decide,
NFL.
You know what? I'm good. I don't need to try
anymore. Need it. College is enough.
The infamous story that they sent him film that was empty, and they just not even anything on it. And then he said he still listened. He watched it. Oh man, classic stuff.
Classic.
But, I mean, again, even from that argument, like those teams. Like, yeah, okay, sure. Nebraska hasn't been relevant in 20 years, but those programs, Iowa State, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota,
in the same
we were in a national championship under 20 years ago. We played in Miami in a national championship under 20 years ago.
I don't remember it, but it was awesome. But there's pictures of me in an Eric Crouch jersey as a young child. You could bet that. So don't remember, but I'm there.
Exactly. So, I mean, and then like when you look at Alabama, it's like the argument that like we can never be relevant again. I mean, Alabama from 97 to 2006 before Nick Saban got there.
No team can be Alabama again. Like, no team can be Nebraska.
But the argument
it's
here
so
is
special.
But the thing, before they even became that, between 97 and 2006 for basically a 10-year period, Alabama had 6 or less wins in 5 of those 9 seasons. So over half of those seasons between 97 and 2006, Alabama had 6 or less wins in that span. And then they hired Nick Saban, and then he had 1 7-win season and then never looked back. So
and then ran away with it. Yeah.
All it takes is the right coach to change things around and turn that ship around. And the idea that Nebraska could never be relevant again, or like it's going to be very difficult to be relevant again, maybe difficult, sure, maybe difficult, but it is very possible, and that is insane to say.
But competing for conference titles is not even close to out of reach. That's why it's so frustrating for Nebraska fans. Like, it's because it is so in reach. Because Wisconsin can be good, and there's more people in Wisconsin. Yeah, sure. Yes, J.J. Watt wanted to go there. That's fair, and he walked on. That's fair. But also at the same time, they got plenty of good running backs. They outsource, just like we have, and we've had plenty of great running backs, and talent.
It just comes down to making Nebraska an attractive destination. Which that's what we do, and we've spent money to do that, and so we are. And yes, we do have, and the history is just a nice little thing, but I think that's not even close to the main reason why a ton of Husker players come here. I don't think that's even close. And in that same sense of recruiting, as well, we agree that the recruiting rankings are just kind of, it's nice to be ahead of Wisconsin and Iowa, but it's
they're
not
close.
But you can't say, oh, we're ahead of them, therefore we're better. Obviously not. But the idea that we are at least in the same,
we have the same talent pool, and there's an argument for better, but at least you could say we're on the same tier of talent of players.
And on a year-to-year basis, we are better than Iowa State, Minnesota, Iowa, and basically Wisconsin almost every single year, according to Rivals and 24/7. So then you have to debate whether or not you believe them. And at the bottom line, you can say we are in the
just
same
as well
ballpark
as Iowa and Wisconsin.
I think a lot of Nebraska fans can make a very real argument that we recruit way better than Iowa, Minnesota, Iowa State, and Wisconsin, and we're somehow currently the worst program. So then the talk about is, where does the blame lie and what's going wrong, and is Frost obvious the guy, and all of those things. So we can at least have a short conversation about why has Frost succeeded at UCF? Why did he turn that program literally 180 them in 2-3 years? And then what's gone wrong at Nebraska so far in that conversation? So we got maybe a short conversation about this. So Caleb, where are you at with what was right for him at UCF, and why hasn't it converted to Big Ten football at Nebraska?
It is easier to flip a program faster because the talent is closer there, and there is a lot of under the radar guys. Going to Nebraska high school and watching football isn't the same, and trying to recruit isn't the same as just going to a Florida high school football game, and seeing guys. They'll be under the radar look guys. There is a population argument, like we said. Not that it's harder for Nebraska, but it's not impossible. In Florida, it's definitely a lot easier, just because, again, you can recruit in your own backyard for sure. But again, Nebraska pay the money to fly our coaches out, to do all the stuff, to compete. But it is easier to do that. And there might be more underlooked guys, again, and convenience there. He did walk into a program that was successful for many, many years, with a good coach.
If we forgot, they had a number 3 overall draft pick in 2014, and then Frost came in 2016. Blake Bortles was there, and they guys like Brashad Perryman, some well-known NFL players were drafted in that time as well. Latavius Murray, some guys who are well-known in the NFL and very talented players, and they came from that program before Frost as well. So it's not like UCF went from UCF completely irrelevant.
Yeah, they were developing
Brandon Marshall
talent.
went to UCF.
Yeah. They were developing talent. They already had been to New York Six Bowls, an established program. And yes, they had a bad season the year before he came on, but the coach was getting old, and he was essentially on the way out anyway, was going to retire. They underperformed that season, and who knows why. There's tons of factors as to why a team does that, and there is a streakiness to it. But then there's a lot of good, talented people that was on that team, and they had 9 NFL players that year when they won. And that's 9 players drafted.
Yeah, and for sure.
And he was handed those players, not recruited. And again,
and so that's the thing. Guys like Shaq Griffin, or Traquan Smith, Jordan Atkins, some really well-known, Shaquem Griffin, some really well NFL guys who translated very well to the NFL were already on that roster when Frost got there. And yeah, okay, then maybe his staff did a good job of developing them. That could be an argument. And then, obviously you look
Milton.
And if you get, you bring a guy like Mackenzie Milton, you hit a 1 in a million type talent with Mackenzie Milton. Of course, the injury completely destroyed any chance he had it, like really being legendary, which is so sad. Hopefully, well, maybe not. Maybe he comes back this year and ends up tearing it up. There's those legit options there where you're like, okay, there was legit NFL talent on that roster when he got there. And there was not legit NFL talent on the Nebraska roster when he got here. So that was the excuse for Frost heading into his first 2 years. And we gave him that excuse. We were very optimistic about Frost after year 1, and still very optimistic about him after year 2 in our videos. Last year was when the red flags really started rearing their head, like, okay, we're losing to Illinois and they still fire Lovie Smith. We're losing to Minnesota when they had 30 players because of COVID not playing, including multiple starters, and we lost at home when our whole team was healthy. Then, you really just rear some ugly things. We turn the ball over consistently when it matters the most, and those things just don't get fixed. And at some point, that reflects on the coaching staff. In the first 2 years, you can say, all right, this reflects on the previous coaching staff. This reflects on the players that are currently here. But at this point now in year 4, watching that Illinois game, you kind of have to say this reflects on Scott Frost and, you and so the coaching staff.
So then it comes to the argument that we've seen a lot. If Scott Frost was Nebraska's last hope and last chance of ever being relevant.
That is a very common, we cannot fire him.
Nobody wants to come coach at Nebraska. It's too much pressure. The media puts too much pressure. The fans put too much pressure. Timeout. That's not the case. We pay a dude $5 million. You tell me if you don't walk up into a good, capable coach who's from a lesser program that you will pay them $5 million to come to Nebraska, they say no.
Half the NFL coaches get paid less than Scott Frost.
Yeah. They believe that we're so bad that, coaches won't come there. Coaches are cocky. They will 100% come here and bet on themselves.
Yeah.
Look at Texas. Texas has just as much pressure, maybe even more, because, again, the convenience factor.
For sure.
They believe that they should be turned around fast. And I think I agree with most Texas fans on that case. There is so much talent in Texas that you should be turned around.
And they've been in a wake of Mac Brown since he left. I mean, Charlie Strong, failure. Tom Herman, failure. They couldn't.
And Tom Herman was one of those, that's one of their own kind of guys too.
Yep.
So they were feeling the same way.
Coming from a winning program, Houston was on fire when Herman was there. And Charlie Strong record 6-7, 5-7, 5-7, 7-6 for Herman, 10-4 for Herman, 8-5 for Herman, 7-3 for Herman. So it got worse as time went on for Herman as well. And I agree with you. They should be a program that has that.
And guess what?
Should be right there.
The fact of the matter is that as long as Husker fans continue the passion and we have money to put the program to make it good, there's no reason we can't win 9 games.
And not only that,
there's no reason we can't win 9 games.
At one point, Urban Meyer was the coach of Bowling Green in Utah. There's the next great somewhere, and you just have to be good at identifying that guy and then creating a culture for that guy to succeed. Exactly. And Bill Belichick coached the Browns. These things, the guys are on weird teams and weird situations, and these guys are out there. But you have to do a good job of identifying them. And that, with all that said, though, our negativity towards Scott Frost, we still think that he deserves the rest of the season to give himself a chance. I mean, if he goes 11-1 the rest, or 11 straight wins the rest of the way, he should be a coach in Nebraska. Obviously.
Honestly, even 9 wins, or 8,
and
7,
even if he rebounds the rest of the way and he goes, let's say 6-5 the rest of the way. There's the math. Even at that point, you're okay, maybe there's an argument for Frost. We at least see the development. There's an argument there. So we still have optimism for Frost, but Adrian Martinez has been just on the field. I mean, yeah, he looks great in practice, but on the field,
that's one of the concerning things for Frost is he's bet on this guy for 4 years.
Yep.
And it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. And again, he is known for being that, the quarterback guru type guy, and it just hasn't worked out. And then you think to special teams. We've had now 3 special teams coaches, and the errors still continue even though we've hired 3 different guys. And so then at that point, like, that's on Scott. We have 2 offensive coordinators. Fair,
a pretty common saying for special teams is that like special teams reflects on the depth of your squad, and good special teams means you have a lot of depth, which probably forwards the future of your program. So you could make the argument then that having bad special teams still now is a precursor to the future of our program still, that like we're still not maximizing our special teams and seeing that pop off on special teams, and that's a problem too. So like, those are potential arguments you can even make, but in again, the negative
and
side.
That's I think one that's everybody's kind of been concerned about Scott Frost is the fact that we haven't seen enough talent be developed, and especially on the offensive side of the ball, where again everybody thought that was going to be how Nebraska wins, is by having a awesome dynamic offense.
Right. And to be fair, if there's one position where you can find locally and recruit well in the state of Nebraska, it'd be O-line. It would be like finding some of these big dudes from Western Nebraska that can push dudes around. And if you coach them up in the right way, they should be able to produce. And we've seen some very great local talent, like even walk-ons, like shout out Soonhoon Choi for being a starter at Nebraska later on. And they're just local talent coming from the area. So like, and they were very, very good talent that had the chance to go to the NFL. So like, there's even guys like that where, you know, and we're not really seeing much of that lately. And that's been a little bit of a question mark. So these are the things that we need to look for moving forward for Nebraska football to be really excited about and energized by Frost in this program. And again, we see the flashes of Adrian Martinez, but if these mistakes, these crucial mistakes don't end up, you know, figuring themselves out over the next few weeks, then you have some real problems. And that's where we're going to have a probably more serious conversation about Frost's future at Nebraska over the next 6-7 weeks. So we'll have to see about that. So now we have a game next week. We have a game on Saturday. Woo. And that is Fordham. Obviously, I mean, they're an FCS school. The line currently is 40.5 points. That is something else. We haven't been favored by 40 in a minute. It's been a long time, but we are projected to stomp the ground with Fordham, which is fun. I mean, it'll be a fun time. Yeah. So the over under is 55.5. So basically that means Vegas assumes we're gonna win like 48-7. Like something like that. Like they think we're gonna absolutely dominate. So 40 to something like that. So it's a pretty big dominant, like expected point or expected score from Vegas. So thoughts on this game? Where are you at with it? Where are you hoping to see in this game and the things you're hoping to see?
I mean, just offensive line improvement. I want to see him, be
dominant.
I mean, again, our defensive line was so aggressive and they were the aggressor. And I just feel like it's been a long time since I've seen that from our offensive line, since they are the ones. I mean, the Big Ten is tone. The Big Ten is tough, yeah, and a lot of teams are going to set the tone with that, and it still just hasn't been there. Our guys haven't been aggressive enough, and so I just like to see a ton of pancakes this week. I mean, it's an FCS school. They should just be throwing, it'd be like throwing us around, just a bunch of rag dolls.
I mean, if we're favored by 40.5, I mean that means Vegas must think that Fordham's like junior hires, because I mean that is. Yeah. Wowzers. I mean, that's a line right there. When I was like thinking about the line, I'm like, okay, maybe like a 25 point, is like a pretty big line, but
I thought 30.
I was surprised by the 40.5, I mean, that was a pretty dominant line. So I agree with you there. I mean, we did talk a little bit last year, like in our preview video on the season. I mean, to be fair, Fordham had some, like, we wanted to watch a little bit of their film, and they had some flashy plays in some games against like Bucknell and Holy Cross. And so like they lost 24-34 to Holy Cross. They can hang,
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, no, they're not bad.
Right. So like, there is some things where like their quarterback looked like at least like he can make some sort of plays and make some type of throws. So, those are the kind of things that are at least interesting to kind of keep your eye on heading into this game for them. Obviously, there's not a lot of film on Fordham, so it's kind of hard to go in and do our deep dive research like we normally would, of course. But
believe it or not, there's not a ton of clicks.
Yeah, especially in a COVID year for Fordham. So
yeah,
those are the kind of the question marks. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Oh, the offensive line, you want to see them really establishing that pace. Defensively, I mean, I'm looking for some turnovers, some big time hits. Like
if we
really
had 3 against Illinois, we should have
pain.
9 against.
I mean, like legitimately, like that's kind of what that could look like. We should have a lot of sacks in this game, forcing some big time turnovers, 3 and outs all over the board, allowing more. I mean, like in the second half, I'd imagine we're gonna be playing 3rd and 4th string guys and like walk on players in that second half. Hopefully, like I'd like to see us get up huge. So in the second half, we can give these freshmen one of these games.
Yeah,
you know,
so we can see,
4-game.
You
So
know,
yeah, we can see Harburg
Yant
and Yant
and Harburg. Yeah,
and these guys
get some reps
out there and tear it up against Fordham. That's what I'm hoping to see. But
agreed.
Right. Overall, those are the world where we could absolutely dominate them. See our third and fourth string guys come in, tear it up, and maybe they score a few points on our third or fourth string defense, you know, where they get a touchdown or two. So
yeah.
Overall, my prediction would be 52-14, where I would bet the under on the 40.5 line. Because let me be honest, I don't trust us to put up, you know, to not make mistakes at this point, even against the FCS teams. So I'll take the under on the 40.5, but I'll have us winning by 38, 52-14 in a pretty dominant fashion overall.
I mean, for me, I could really see it both ways. I could see us hitting the over.
Okay. Yeah.
I could definitely see it. I'm gonna go.
To be fair, Adrian Martinez is an elite athlete compared to probably what Fordham.
I'd say most players on our team are absolutely. It's not just a jump above. It's
Could you have played at Fordham?
100%. I'd be absolutely nasty as the water boy. I'd be disgusting.
And this is
dude.
such a good analyst for Fordham, you know,
dude. Yeah, let me tell you, my crayons would look really good as an analyst for Fordham.
Yeah, like, you can draw on a whiteboard better than anybody, you know.
Yeah, it's great.
So wait, so what's your official score prediction?
45-10.
Okay, all right. So you're taking the under as well. 35-point win. All right, fair play. So I mean, I don't know. Other things you're looking to see defensively, I think it's just overall like a well-oiled machine. Like looks like we're a dominant program. Getting the young guys some time, getting the depth and some of that establishment, working the playbook, maybe working on a few fun things for this game. But obviously we have which is now a big game against Buffalo the following week, which they announced our alternate unis, which gets me nervous.
No, why?
Buffalo. I'm scared. But
that makes me so scared.
What happens
We're so bad.
In a game
We're so bad
like
at all uni games.
It's been a bad history for uni games.
Why curse us like this?
But yeah, so we didn't want to go too in on the Fordham game. I feel like it's not like that. You know, it's not too crazy. I think we're gonna pretty much come out there and we could probably walk on our walk-ons and play a pretty competitive game. So we'll see what happens. And we hope you guys enjoyed this video. Obviously, you know, the negativity, the positivity, the criticism, but also the excitement about Husker football. We're excited for Husker football. We were pumped for that game on Saturday. And even when we had that chance in the second half of the game, we were both hyped. We're like, all right, you know, this is possible. We have a chance here. We're down by 8 with the ball. Let's make something happen. But then Adrian threw 2 balls off his back foot, nearly got picked twice. And then suddenly we're like, okay, well, now
I've seen that movie before.
We've seen this movie before.
Thanks,
Amen.
Frost, for that one.
So overall, we're really excited about the future of Nebraska football. We still believe that Nebraska football can be great and can return to a level of legit year-to-year consistency.
We can win a conference championship. It can happen.
We can at least win the Big Ten West on a regular basis. Beating Ohio State once every decade? I mean, is that too much to ask? Once a decade, can we beat Ohio State?
I mean, if Iowa can, you know?
Right? Exactly. So that's what we're looking for. I mean, Harbaugh barely can. So, I mean, tough stuff for Michigan. So, you know, that's kind of a tough line. But we'll see. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Share it if you guys really enjoyed it. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Make sure you're notified for all of our uploads. They can be kind of coming out at weird times nowadays. Sometimes they're in the morning. Sometimes they're at night like this one. So, you know, who knows? But anyway, again, we appreciate you guys. And but as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports. And guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Big Red.